Hi, Billy.
Hi, Maria. Oh my gosh! Is this a timeline I can walk through?
It is, Billy. It is. Now go sit in the corner.
No!
So in the 1730s, the First Great Awakening began, and a focus on emotion and passion was emphasized rather than intellectual sermons. Some say that the First Great Awakening led to an increased belief in democracy, equality, freedom of thought and speech, and other values that would later contribute to the American Revolution. In 1754, the Join or Die cartoon was published by Benjamin Franklin, the guy you really want to have in your wallet. Originally supposed to show the importance of colonial unity against the French and Indian War, it ultimately led to an increase in patriotism and a symbol for independence from Britain. In 1754, the French and Indian War also began, and this was ultimately a battle between the French and the British over territory that led to the taxation of colonists later on. And in 1763, we have the Proclamation line drawn. The British meant it to keep peace between American colonists and the Native Americans, but colonists saw it as a barrier to their freedom and sense of independence and adventurousness. In 1764, there were a series of acts, including the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Declaratory Act, and the Townshend Acts, all which taxed items necessary for business and yummy food. I was really sad about the tax on sugar, and so is this chocolate bar, because you can't make chocolate without sugar. But anyway, these were meant to help pay for the French and Indian War, but the colonists didn't want any taxation without representation, and that became a common phrase used in the quest for independence. So in 1770, there was the Boston Massacre, a tragic event in which 5 civilians were killed by British soldiers. And propaganda surrounding the incident really blew it out of proportion, some people think, and it ultimately led to an increased sense of resistance against the British. So in 1772, the Committees of Correspondence are formed, and these were powerful political entities which basically disseminated pro-revolution information, and they were the brains behind the American resistance. In 1773, we had the Boston Tea Party, which was an operative political protest in which colonists threw tea overboard and turned Boston Harbor into a giant teacup. This severely angered the British, and so, in 1974, they passed the Intolerable Acts, which punished, along with other things, Boston by taking away their right of self-government. So when remembering how these acts are organized in the timeline, think about how intolerable the Intolerable Acts were and how the colonists couldn't take any more, and therefore they were the last ones. So in 1774, we have the first Continental Congress formed, and this is a little picture of a bunch of politicians arguing. And in response to the Intolerable Acts, the Patriots created this Congress, where delegates from 12 colonies, which did not include Georgia, convened and established a boycott of British goods, but not British accents, because those are really sexy, am I right? And organized a second Continental Congress to meet later on. And then in 1775, finally, we have the battles of Lexington and Concord, and the first shot is also known as the shot heard round the world, and we'll cover that in our next video when we cover the Revolutionary War. So let's take a moment to think about why these events happened in this order. So where did it all start? Personally, I see 2 themes that interlink. So first, disagreement about just taxation between the Americans and the British, and a growing sense of independence and democracy within the American value system. So if you go back through this video and look at all the events, you might notice how some of these events match up to these different themes, and maybe you'll notice different recurring themes from your textbook and from your lectures that would really help you make sense of how all these pre-war events built up on top of each other and why they happened in the order that they did. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and come back for more.